It's picking up my mic? Yes. And it there we are. There we go. It says I am live. No one appears to be here as of yet, but for the sake of kicking off the stream, hello everyone. Welcome to my weekly stream. You may notice from the title that today I am doing a little bit more art, and if that wasn't noticeable by the title, then surely the fact that on screen right now there is a model of a character that I intend on actually drawing shortly. I am joined by my regular co-host, Cybernetic Pink Eye.
I'm working off of 3.5 hours of sleep.
I was gonna say both he and I are kind of in the sleep-deprived state of things, which is another reason why I'm doing art today. I mulled over a few options for for games that I might want to play today, and I touched on Final Fantasy VII, the heaviest, because it's like I want to keep the momentum going with that. But you know, I was looking at there's Murder by Numbers, which is a game that actually Moa, as in Hodiful Moa, as in the creator of Hodiful Boyfriend, actually did art for. But I was kind of like, Murder by Numbers involves numbers and puzzle solving, so maybe not that today. I don't think my brain would be quite up for it. I contemplated going back to Skyrim. I contemplated going back to Dragon Age Origins.
And I contemplated going back to sleep.
That too, but I didn't think that would be terribly entertaining for people to listen in on, with especially the two of us sleeping.
Well, it depends on what you say in your sleep.
Well, I don't think I say much in my sleep.
No, but I never quite know about myself. Half the time I don't know what I say when I'm awake.
Well, okay, I'll give you that. But, anyway, glad to see all three of yous. Okay, I tease. It's always good for anyone who likes to drop by, and today is
the Holy Trinity.
Well, how about you shut up, anyway?
Don't interrupt me!
Do not interrupt me! So you like having an audience when you do the sleeps?
Evidently.
Alright, let's see. Is this the... So yeah, you may see the model that is currently on screen. This is the base that I am going to be using to figure out a character, actually, a character design. I mean, once again, like everything it seems, this ties back to the Magic of the Mundane campaign that Griffin and I are in, but this is actually technically a side thing, a personal project, maybe a headcanon thing, but probably not something that's ever going to actually come up in the campaign, and I would still have to run it by the DM first. But anyway, this is a character that is Ophelia's aunt, and, you know, her mother's sister and all of that.
Hello, Shikarian.
Hello, Shikarian. Hello, Phoenix Rising. Hello, hello. I love how we both sound exhausted.
I can't imagine why.
Maybe the reasons that I love that you literally told me twice how much sleep you got and why. Like, he messaged me, like, earlier, about 3 hours ago or something like that. 4 hours.
That sounds right.
And actually went on to, like, say, I only got 3 hours of sleep because I am a stickler for my production quality. And then just when he joined the call not too long ago, maybe about 15 minutes, he repeated himself almost word for word. So I'm gonna guess, Griffin, that you're a little bit tired.
Now, what would make you think a thing like that?
I have no idea. I don't know what I'm doing. No one of us know what we're doing.
Mood.
But I do have a character to draw, so... Oh, Lord.
Oh, Lord, she coming.
So I specifically actually went for a larger size on the canvas this time.
Hmm.
because I really want to try and give the impression of thinner lines than I have been.
Hmm.
As you can see, I am great at the sketching. But anyway. But how are you guys all doing today? Hope you guys are having a good one, enjoying your weekend. I hope you
Happy
guys are getting...
Pokemon Day.
Fuck off. Anyway, hope you guys are actually getting far more sleep than Griffin and I did. Hello, Sabrina. Welcome. But yeah, no, yeah, Pokemon, is it literally like today that's the anniversary?
Today, on the day 25 years ago, Pokemon Red and Green released in Japan.
Cool. I was only vaguely aware of Pokemon when it first came out. I remember it actually originally more from the anime than anything else. And then I was
Yeah,
like, oh, it's
that's
a
how I
video?
got introduced to it too, I think.
Yeah. But I stopped watching that not too long after I started watching it.
Yeah, fair. Ash is kind of a dumbass.
Well, it's not because Ash is a dumbass, although... What am I doing? Can I draw a face? I cannot.
I mean, that's just it. Ash Ketchum is sort of the Sora Kingdom Hearts of anime protagonists, and that he doesn't really earn any of his victories.
Okay, don't. That's not nice. And actually, Sora goes through hell. All things considered. I got interested into Pokeo. Why are you apologizing? I don't get it. If that's a joke about something, then I don't get it, but that's okay, because I'm stupid.
Neither do I. Although I will say me being sorry is a consistent mood to one extent or another.
You're not sorry.
It depends on what I'm saying I'm sorry for.
True. I got introduced to Pokemon through the anime as well. A lot of people did because that was a little bit more of like a mainstream thing.
Yeah.
But the game, I mean, they wouldn't have had the anime if the game itself wasn't enjoyable.
Yeah. Oh, I think they were saying sorry because maybe they hit enter too soon, and that's why it ended in Pokeo.
Oh.
Alright.
Okay.
But,
I was like,
yeah, it took me a sec, but yeah, I'm like, okay, yeah, I've made that mistake before as well.
I thought it was like maybe like a joke on like Pokemon Rodeo or something.
I mean, I could see that being a fucking minigame, I'm not gonna lie. Considering the fucking minigames in Pokemon Stadium. Like, they literally have a game where you have to go around, like, licking sushi off a conveyor belt as a Lickitung.
Anyway, I'm ignoring that.
Yeah, good call.
But in all seriousness, I am looking forward to tomorrow. As usual, we have a rundown of, like, what's going on with Magic of the Mundane. Although, admittedly, some of those conversations have been lacking as of recent. And I mean, we've recently shifted. I know I talked about this last time, but we shifted to an every other week format where Gab and I trade off weeks DMing separate campaigns, so that we both have time to actually flesh out stuff and take down notes and stuff like that between sessions, and that neither of us end up burning out. So that's something that I'm looking forward to eventually showing. And tomorrow I am excited because my baby girl is broken. Like, not even like, oh no, she's sad. I mean, as in, she was intent on tracking down and killing the person that attacked her little brother 2 years ago. She was very convinced that this person, well, she is convinced that this person is the one responsible. And unfortunately, just as she was about to bear down on this person that she thought was the killer, the person literally teleported out. And so Ophelia, who had everything hinging on this potential contact, on being able to murder this woman on the spot. When I say that she had a breakdown, I mean that I had to describe it instead of vocalizing it, because she was screaming in pure frustration and rage and despair and was not having a good time of it. And then immediately, so this character who is known for her strategy, for thinking things through for the most part logically, for not really doing shit like completely willy-nilly, ended up kind of being more impulsive than usual. Like, talk of them needing to go back to town, she immediately took flight, even though there was literally someone standing right there who could make portals for them to travel through. But she wasn't interested in waiting to find out about that.
I like how both of our writing styles can be essentially summed up as, let's be as inhumanly mean to our characters as possible.
I cannot wait. I have been working on storyboarding in Atomatic that will eventually actually go up on Serenia Studios, as also possibly and actually, in fact, probably a song cover. But it is related to the campaign, related to a specific character who is not having a good time right now. But I am excited to eventually bring that to the channel, but I'm going to be putting together an animatic of it, like of the storyboarded bits, and it's going to be actually even fancier for when I actually do the panels for the channel, for the actual official video. But having that ready potentially for tomorrow, and if not for tomorrow, then perhaps next week. We'll see how things go. But it's been something that I have been building up for a year now. I actually over a year. And it's one of those things where I am waiting. Describing it is probably worse than acting it out. Yeah. So just literally she, and in fact I can even show, well, first what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this so I don't lose all of the data just in case something happens. Save always, save often, children, if you are making the art.
Control S is your friend.
Abso-fucking-lutely. But yeah, so, like, in terms of trying to capture the mood that hit Ophelia as soon as she opened the door and saw the person that she thought was responsible for attacking her little bro, this was the picture that I rendered.
She's not okay.
I would like to write fanfiction of Magic of the Mundane, but I want to be accurate. Even I don't want to be 100% an idiot. Oh, come on. Also, hey, Ian. The thing is that especially once this particular story beat comes out, I'm probably going to be talking about it, breaking down everything that happened over the course of the campaign, literally from the beginning, in fact. And I am looking forward to the moment when it finally clicks for the other players what was going on this entire time. And I will even say it's kind of funny that a bunch of the players actually went to the DM with different ideas for backstories and potential overlapping plot stuff for the campaign, as long as it actually wove in with what she wanted to do. And a lot of them ended up overlapping really, really well.
I was gonna say.
Like, to the point where, at one point, Gab was, like, stressing out because we all had a lot of different ideas. And then she said, actually, I don't think I need to do much. These all, connect perfectly, actually. Even down to the point of, say, for example, Owen, when we were struck by Danganronpa part Magic of the Mundane,
Yeah.
when Griffin's character Owen ended up basically, well, he transferred his soul into a warforged body.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that by ending the life of his organic body. And he decided to make it into a message for the players by pinning his old body to his corkboard in his room. And all of this was to try and warn the other player characters that apparently there was going to be a serial killer doing cult-like murder shit.
Mm-hmm.
He could have, I mean, he was planning to make the transfer at some point anyway, but, like, it offered a convenient excuse. Or it added more to the ongoing momentum of the plot. Unfortunately, the problem there is that Ophelia's little brother had been stabbed in the chest, and that was precisely where Owen was pierced through to his corkboard.
He's a sick fuck.
And well, he didn't know that. That's the worst part.
Yeah.
And Ophelia was among the people that actually discovered the body.
Uh-huh.
She's actually been a part of literally every body discovery, because Owens was not the first. Well, not the last, I should say. He was technically the first murder victim, which turned out to be a suicide, but, you know. But, so, my poor girl has been dealing with PTSD ever since then. Hello, Zach. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello, Zach.
But yeah, no, it's I'm very satisfied to be where we are, to the point where I was like, I'm looking forward to it so much that come Thursday evening, when Griffin started having difficulty with his graphics drivers on his computer, I was like,
because I'm an impatient piece of shit.
Long story short, his graphics drivers were updating, and he ended up getting impatient and turning off the computer. And then when he turned it back on, whoops, it turns out that they tell you not to restart the computer until it's finished for a reason.
Oops, all uh-oh.
But thankfully, we were able to get that fixed, and it's fine. Obviously keeping an eye on what's going on with it, but, you know. But when that happened, like, the sane human part of me was like, oh shit, that really sucks. Like, I would be panicking if something like that were going on, and I was happy to help him in whatever way I could. But there was definitely a part of me that was like, if you force us to postpone when we are this close to what I have been building up for this entire time, I am going to have a nervous breakdown. We won't have to worry about the character having a nervous breakdown. But, like, I want to make you happy with my silly fanfic writing. I don't want to mess up and have you be like, well, okay, here's the thing. I'm not going to be mad if you get details wrong, because you're not sitting in on the sessions. You're not part of it. We talk about it a lot, but it's not like I would expect you to know. However, if you write fanfic of my character, and this is going to be, I'm going to say this, there are some content creators that are excluded from this, but for the most part, any content creator, if you do fan work of their stuff, and you let them know about it, they're going to be so flattered and so happy about it. It doesn't matter if it's accurate or not. The fact that you care enough to want to make the thing matters a hell of a lot more than almost anything else, really.
Oh, yes.
Now, there are some people who are assholes that go out there and are like, you got this detail wrong, so I don't know that, like, this is terrible. If anyone does that, you can just, forget ever dealing with them ever again.
Yeah.
they're not worth the mental anguish to take their words personally. Everyone else that I know as a content creator will flip their goddamned lids if you actually do art of their characters or, fanfic of stuff that's going on in their life, AU fanfiction, anything.
That is to say, in the good way.
Yeah, don't write about the sexing.
Yeah.
That
Especially considering these are minors.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, Ophelia is 17, but yes, that is a minor. She acts like she's 30, but that's not a good thing.
Yeah, she gets it from her mother.
She gets a lot of things from her mother, actually.
Yep.
She learned how to flirt from her mother, so let's leave that fucking psychological package where that lies.
Mm-hmm.
But she learned a lot about acting, singing, dancing, all of the creative stuff that Ophelia prides herself on. She learned about social stuff, that was primarily Trudy's domain. She is she is basically the charisma queen, so to speak. I don't need to write about the sex thing anyway. I'd like to think I can be fun. Yeah. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm very funny without sex. But it's one of those things where Ophelia has literally kind of modeled herself off after her mother quite a bit. She's done a bit of both of her parents, and it was actually funny, the first time we actually got to meet her parents, Blaine and Trudy, in the campaign, because it's oh, everything makes sense now. Because Ophelia started off the campaign as something of a Byakuya Togami XP from Danganronpa.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of where she was started, but she always had high charisma score. She was always a very charming person when she wanted to be. She's actually literally part of her plot has been distancing herself from being nothing but a pure ruthless logic creature. Which has had interesting results with her family. But she has been getting full support from her mother, who's been actually very relieved to see that her daughter is not turning out exactly like her father. Because unfortunately, Trudy and Blaine have been having relationship issues. Now, there's a couple of things for that. He is the cold, distant businessman archetype. They're a rich family, by the way. But he's always working with the business. He's literally made almost no time for family, all sorts of stuff like that. And meanwhile, Trudy is a massive flirt. And when I say she's a massive flirt, I mean she flirts with just about anyone. And I don't... we say don't write the fanfic stuff with these characters because they're minors. Trudy has no such restraint.
Yeah.
I actually found it hilarious at Timothy's birthday party where she was literally openly flirting with the NPC, Alex.
Yeah.
It's oh, that's about 10 gallons of awkward right there. And at her son's birthday party, no less.
Mm-hmm.
That was classy, Trudy.
I mean, Trudy, if you're that thirsty, the punch bowl's over there.
Well, okay. I thought it was funny, too. Ophelia and Jess ended up approaching her because... So, the thing is that, unfortunately, Blaine did not show up to the birthday party. Mm-hmm. And so, Trudy's okay, where the fuck is my husband? I know he's usually a douchebag about this kind of thing, but you'd think that maybe this would be the one time when he stops being a douchebag. But I can't leave this party because I'm literally the central hostess, but can you guys go look for Blaine, find out where the fuck he is? And so our party actually went to go look, and when they came out of the mansion again, they came back to Trudy flirting with Alex, and when Ophelia and Jess Jess, who is the daughter of a business person who has done business with the Price family and, like, largely Blaine, because Blaine is largely the business guy of the two of them. Oh, Trudy being more like the social media person or the socialite. Rich guy with no time for family. I've seen that in a movie. Yeah, it's a very common trope. But yeah, so they come over and it's this whole awkwardness with Alex there, and I think it was even Jess who specifically was like, "You're dismissed," to Alex. And Alex was like, "I'm not going anywhere." It was fucking. He's like a 17-year-old kid, and Trudy was outright flirting with him in the open, in the middle of this fucking party. And when other people were coming up and like, can you not right now? Alex was like, no. He did eventually back off, but it was just one of those, like, speaking of thirsty, however thirsty Trudy is, Alex has that, I think, at least in a way to rival her.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's being thirsty, and then there's being a fucking manhole like Alex.
Mm-hmm. Which is really awkward when you know at least one Alex in real life.
I was gonna say...
I'm not just picturing, like, our Alex going...
Yeah. Like, why would you besmirch their name like that?
And I'm picturing, like, you calling them the goddamn... Well, I mean... Let's just say the hoe, anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say the non-binary hoe.
The NB hoe.
Yes.
But, that would not be... that either way. It applies, and it's one of those, if you call Alex a man-hoe, he'd be like, what? I like it. But,
yeah, and water's wet. What's your point?
That's not the only thing that's wet. But yeah, I will say the funny thing about that is, so in looking for Blaine, that was how they ended up discovering a new murder victim. There's someone that flirts more than Ophelia. Oh, sorry, that's Ophelia.
Surprising, I know.
It's Ophelia. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm teasing. I'm sorry, I'm not actually going to pick on you typing. It's hard to do that sometimes. I sometimes speak with typos, and that's fun.
Oh, I mean, as someone who grew up with a speech impediment, I can tell you how much of a joy that is.
For me, it's very often that it's because my brain either gets ahead of the word that I'm saying or ends up combining a couple of different words, which is, again, a lot of fun, because sometimes, because here's the thing, I can find certain things funny, but I will say it's because ADHD brain, when people make fun of me for misspeaking, my brain will sometimes kick into, like, bad mental state. But anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they were looking for Blaine, and like, after confirming with Trudy, like, yeah, he's not in the house anywhere, they ended up expanding their search out to the town proper, and that's where they found Blaine exiting an alley where someone had just died.
You know, as you do.
Oh, and he had blood on his hands, which didn't help. But as far as they have no real way to confirm that was him or not, that actually attacked the person, but because they don't have evidence, they can't, like, lock him away or anything. Although I do think that Owen is still deeply suspicious of him.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, for more than just that. More reasons than just that.
Yeah, he wanted to kill him for a long while.
Yeah, because 1%.
Yeah. I still love that moment, by the way, with the fusion. So,
you wanted to do what to my dad? You wanted to do what to Curtis?
Mm-hmm. Our characters had their souls fused into one being, and they went by the name Mercury. And in the immediate fusing, while the confusion was happening, while the memories were kind of, melding into one person, they both ended up taking turns, and this was fun player-wise, I'll say that much, because we ended up simultaneously playing the same character.
Yeah.
but with the different elements of each of our characters being more predominant in responding to things. And of course, because it's me and Griffin, how often did we end up arriving at the exact same thing to say anyway?
I think it's a better question to ask, how often didn't we?
It was only even really at the beginning when they were supposed to be confused and adjusting to being the same person anyway. But it was a fun little experiment. And because they shared their memories, Owen, being someone who grew up in probably one of the worst scenarios for being poor, which is as a terminally ill person, with no real way to afford the healthcare, and never mind the complication of his mother pretending that it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
Until a lot of damage had literally been physically done to him as a result of dealing with this illness.
Oh, yes.
There's a reason why he's mad at her, too. But, like, so he saw this person, Blaine Price, who is literally richest man in town, 1%, probably even, like, the
Donald Trump of Lockheed.
Okay, that is definitely pushing it too far.
Yeah, well, I'm saying that's how Owen saw him.
Maybe more like the Jeff Bezos, which is not good either, but I really don't want to compare Blaine in any capacity to Trump.
That's fair.
But yeah, no, he was living it rich while people were suffering and dying, and so Owen was like, you know, a message needs to be sent.
You exclusively are what is wrong with this town and what is wrong with the world. People like you. That's basically his motivation.
Hello, Princess Hardith. Sounds like the start of an Ace Attorney case. Wish I could curtsy for you. Welcome, welcome.
I mean...
I think you've done the typing equivalent of that, so that's fine. So, he wanted to kill Blaine Price because privileged and also literally a symbol of everything that is wrong with the world. And Ophelia, well, she learned that her crush was on her teacher. Her teacher, who has an alter ego as a Sentai warrior, superhero, crime fighter guy. She had a crush on the superhero alter ego. And then realized, and it was even funny that she literally did not realize that it was him until everyone else had.
Yeah,
this person who prides herself on being the most logical and, able to think clearly, was the last one to I'll even say it makes sense that she would be in denial of any sign. But still.
Yes.
Found out that it was him, had an internal meltdown about that fact, and in her embarrassment and, the crushing side of having a crush, the emotional fallout from it, she decided that she hated having this emotional weakness. And so she went on to be a terrible person. Actually the worst she's been this entire campaign. She is a psychological thing. She decided that she needed to project what she perceived as her weakness, which was having affection for another person, onto someone else, so that they would be as opposed to her processing it, putting it onto someone else and then condemning it. So,
and that someone else just so happened to be someone that Owen had a crush on.
Uh-huh. Oh, hey, Donna.
Hello.
You're a rare treat to see today.
Mm-hmm.
Good to have you.
Yes.
Zach immediately, Dawn! You guys are adorable. Anyway.
Oh, yes.
So she not only targeted Curtis, who was Owen's crush at the time, but she literally had the intention of leading the dude on to the point where he would have been fully infatuated with her, and then turning around and dumping him as cruelly as possible.
That was the intention.
That was the intention. However, Scout came on the scene, and that kind of went out the window. She had second thoughts.
I hope he cleaned up first.
Well, anyway, passing affection over to someone else that's both dumb and evil. Yes, yes, it is. And so the thing is that fortunately she never got to the point where she actually, followed through with the dumping of Curtis, which fortunately actually just left them on better social terms with each other. She was just like, she even, like, her last thing, her last real talk on the subject was basically, you really are a wonderful person and a great friend, and you really do deserve happiness. And that was actually a good entry point for Owen, all things considered. But either way, so she didn't follow through with it, and Owen ended up having second thoughts about vigilante justice on Blaine. Even if he didn't trust him, he backed off a little bit on the kill Blaine Price thing. However, when they fused into one person, they became Mercury.
And they both found out about each thing at the exact same time.
And so the conversation ended up being like, they were like muddled. We ended up having like a back and forth script that we did upon their fusing. And it was like they did back and forth, and then like wait a second. You were planning to do what with my father?
You were planning to do what to Curtis?
And then it was just kind of like, okay, we need to focus. I need to focus.
Yes.
And then they lost track of the fact that they were originally two people.
Yeah.
They became a one people by the name of Mercury. And that was a fun little exchange, a little adventure.
We wrote them all in one piece.
Anyway, this
Listen,
has been a lot of fun today. I'm glad you guys decided to come out and watch this. Unfortunately, Griffin has ruined all of reality, so I kind of should probably, hang up and deal... No, I'm not going to do that.
And this isn't even my final form.
Hello, Boba Fett. Welcome.
I feel like even without like having specifically with that tag, it's just like random character. Oh, hello, Boba Fett. It's just like trying to like... I love the idea of just like someone trying to get out of a situation that just randomly conjuring in their mind like some random like IP character showing up is like,
oh, hi, Boba Fett.
Oh, hi, John Arbuckle. How are you doing?
I'm sorry, I have to go meet up with my friend, Calvin.
Yes. He wanted to show me his new stuffed toy.
Griffin's just going to quote all of anime. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah,
see, I'm not that terrible.
It's been interesting. The dynamic between Ophelia and Owen had actually been getting increasingly hostile.
To say the least.
I mean, part of it was justified on Ophelia's part. Some of it was justified on Owen's part, but when she got PTSD from discovering Owen dead in his room pinned to the corkboard, even he was like, yeah, that was a dick move.
Yeah.
But then she kept getting pissy with him, throwing accusations at him that ended up actually pissing him off.
Mm-hmm.
So it ended up being a bad scene, to the point where after finding Blaine on a murder scene, like literally at the scene of murder, Owen's like, okay, yeah, I think we have found our suspect.
Uh-huh.
And Ophelia was like, that's literally impossible, that's my dad, fuck you. And it got to the point where Owen was outright threatening Blaine again.
Yeah?
And so Ophelia took a magical item that they had just found and could confirm that it was, well, cursed of some kind, and hit him over the head with it. Okay, but to be fair, he is a warforged, not an organic body.
Yeah, so at that point it wouldn't actually hurt him.
Look, Donna, please don't call me out on it. That one line you do exactly the same and then delete 20 times in a row is such a mood. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. My dad actually asked me about that once. It's like, so I see you draw a line and it looks perfectly fine, but then you just immediately like delete it and try again. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Artists are not clever people.
Fuck you. It's not about cleverness. It's about perfection. wait a second.
I was gonna say
it's about being
I'm not a clever person either.
It's a matter of perfectionism. You do not have a right to do that. Getting 3 hours of sleep because I have to re-render this thing several times in order to have it just perfect. How did I have? Okay.
I'm not pulling any holier than thou shit. I know I'm a dumbass.
I mean, you usually do, but not about this. Artists are not clever people. Look, I agree. But yeah, so by using the cursed item to knock Owen out, it ended up actually activating the cursed item, which actually teleported everyone into the room, into the dream world, and that's how Ophelia and Owen got fused.
You've activated my trap card. I see we're going ahead with the anime quotes.
I mean, that was all according to Keikaku.
Oh, exactly.
We did plan for that in advance, and it was to the point of, like, we brought up the concept with Gab at one point of our two characters having the ultimate get-along sweater, literally fusing into the same person.
Oh, yeah.
And she got excited by the idea. She was like, okay, I have an idea for how we can do this.
Yeah.
And then we did it.
Also, I just realized Ophelia's aunt sort of has scout hair.
A little bit.
I mean, it works out.
Yeah, it's, in her case, it's very much, I did debate between a few different things, but yes, Diane is, like, it's not direct inspiration, but it's one of those things where it looks very much like the aunt stereotype haircut.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like a cross between, like, Scout or Ochako from My Hero Academia.
Yep. I don't even draw, but redoing the same thing 20 times is a mood. I could end up doing the same shot of moving a hand a few times because the hand didn't move right. Yep. Animation is similar, just from my limited experience with it.
Yes, absolutely.
Any kind of creative thing honestly has that moment where you're literally just redoing this tiny little detail that most people probably won't even fucking notice, but you notice it, and you don't like it being there, so you redo it until it's perfect.
There's still shit from videos I've posted in the past that I know is there, and I know other people most likely never see, but it still pisses me off that they're there to begin with.
And then you look at the whole thing instead of focusing on one detail and it looks terrible. I mean, again, we're also going to be our own worst critics. I'm not talking about Laura's drawing. I love these hairlines. I have a lot of fun with character design stuff and outfit design stuff.
You're good at it.
I try to. I try to be. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this thing that I'm supposed to be doing, but I keep...
You mean drawing?
Griffin.exe.
Anyway, that was my time here.
Griffin.exe has been terminated.
The role of Griffin will be played by Thin Air.
Yeah. But I actually, so for my other campaign, one of the characters ended up actually, so my campaign, the one that I am DMing.
Yeah, my little campaign.
My little campaign. My little campaign.
My little campaign, Lyrinus is a fucking... I couldn't think of anything clever. Like I said, I'm not in my right mind.
So, this character, interestingly enough, even like literally during that session, the Gab, the player of that character, ended up drawing her, rendering her in her style. And so this is Halem. She is an elf. She is a bard. And there's a lot of cool things about her. And during that session that, I mean, you guys will find out more when this thing starts going streaming. But anyway, during that session, they ended up finding what was basically, you know, a fancy dress for like a big, a gown for like really formal occasions with like nobility and shit. This character looks so nice. I love Halem. so much.
She is a good.
She is amazing. Um, and I love that her attitude towards Lyranus so far has been, "You're pretty. Do as I say, and I won't hate you. Maybe." She looks soft and ethereal. Yeah, and it works for her. She can still kick your ass. I still love the way that Koshi and Halem really synchronize. Like they have really good synergy on the battlefield.
They really are in fucking sync, aren't they?
I still got 2-in-1 creative writing. Still wonder why my writing back then sucked. Well, it didn't suck. It was just a work in progress.
Yeah.
So anyway, she found a dress, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna draw this dress for your character. And so this was the design that I ultimately came up with. This green dress. And I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. It
As
really
well you
does,
should be.
It really does give the impression of, like, you know, a dress for noble parties.
Yeah.
And also, it looks good on her. I really gotta say, I love the fucking color scheme for Halem. It's one of those really perfect color schemes for all sorts of different fashion. A lot of different colors go really, really well with that really rich skin tone. And I mean, she's just gorgeous. I love her.
And then there's Koshi.
Koshi, I still love the fucking comment from the herbalist. So they encountered an herbalist.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, she was about to hand them a side quest. She looked them over to check for injuries or any sign of illness, looked at Koshi, who is a Kenku, who has plucked all of the feathers off of their body, and is having an identity crisis. He's just, they're just in crisis. Just always crisis.
They really are.
But perpetual crisis, and because of the plucking, has continual irritation over his skin, their skin, apologies.
No worries.
It's one of those, they are very much a they.
Yeah.
So, they've also shown some signs of relative instability. As soon as they arrived at an inn, they made a nest in one of the rooms. As soon as
nothing relative about it. They're fucking unstable.
They, as soon as they heard that undead were involved, they bolted out the window of the inn and started running towards the forest.
Yeah.
Had issues with the zombies that were there when they arrived on the scene, to the point of literally just repeatedly smashing in the head of one of the zombies.
They're not okay.
They're not okay, and they've got a problem with, like, dead things and
What do you mean,
things.
a problem?
So, getting to the herbalist, and the herbalist looks Koshi over and says, "Well, you are not well, but unfortunately not in a way that I can remedy."
Was it an out loud thing? Because I thought it was like they look at them and think they are sick, but they're not in a way that can be.
No, they
I
said
forget if
it.
they said it out loud.
She said it out loud.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah,
Wow.
no, she identified right on the spot that
This thing is not okay.
well, she didn't say this thing. She was just like, you know, you are very clearly not well, but unfortunately this is not a malady that I can cure. So, Koshi, on the other hand, also, like, on meeting the sweetest boy in all of boydom, pulled a sword when my boy tried to fucking hug them.
To be fair, Koshi's got trust issues.
No kidding. And, like, I you know, can't blame them to an extent, but, like, my sweet, sweet boy tries to give them all a hug, and Koshi pulls out a fucking sword. And, like, that was how the first session even ended, with my boy being like, "I love you all so much," and Koshi being like, "How can I end this?"
Yeah, and to elaborate on what makes this even more awkward, Koshi is a Kenku, and Kenkus are essentially raven people who cannot speak by themselves. They can only communicate in quotes, like parroting what they hear. So basically, half the fun of playing Koshi is just like coming up with fucking quotes from various other pieces of media and waiting to see if anyone gets the reference.
Sometimes I get the references, other times I do not.
Yeah. Do you still have the icon image I sent you of Koshi? In case people are curious what they look like.
I can pull that up.
Sweet.
I should be able to.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting to that point with my voice where it's kind of like in the lower register. Cool.
Ooh.
They speak with other people's voices or in sounds that they've heard.
Yes.
Anyway. So yeah, this is Koshi.
They exist.
They have a thing.
I will also say they were a lot of fun to fucking Photoshop together from the base image that Gab sent me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and they're not seeing things, by the way. Their eyes are completely glossed over.
Mm-hmm.
And their beak is very much cracked. They're malnourished as fuck. And they got like a lot of like lumps and bumps on their featherless skin.
Well, it's not so much about knowing what Kenkus look like. It's the specific Kenku that has no feathers.
Yeah, this specific Kenku is especially... like a cross between a Kenku and a plague-ridden naked mole rat.
That is a sentence that you just said that, like, I'm not even, like, astounded. I'm not quite impressed. But it was a sentence that you sure just said.
It was. And funny you mentioned that, Rubrina. Plague Doctors were actually sort of partially the inspiration behind, my choice for Koshi as a character. Because one of the ways they get by is by selling vials of what they make people believe are miracle cures. But they're just random liquids and stuff. And so a nickname they've sort of earned in the underground is Doc. And I'll even say this as well. Koshi is also sort of a name that is more or less given to them.
Oh, that's not a name that rings any bells with me, Phoenix. Sorry. But sorry.
Kaneku. Yeah, unfortunately, that does not ring a bell for me either.
But yeah, you were saying Griffin. I apologize.
Oh, it's fine. But yeah, I was just saying that like Koshi's name, like both the name Doc as well as the name Koshi are sort of like the result of what other people have heard and concluded about them. And I'm looking forward to more details about Koshi being revealed over the course of the campaign.
Same. Alright, there we go. That's a little bit better. There we go. I have fixed her hair.
Oh, for a second I thought you were drawing a hat.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
But
God, I'm sorry. I just had another realization about Diane here, because like, I'm sorry I keep talking about Pokemon, but she reminds me a fucking lot aesthetic-wise of one of your rivals from the Pokemon games Black and White.
The one that you had Jane voice?
Yes.
I can see that. If you have not seen Griffin's latest video, he actually uploaded a Pokemon... it's a Pokemon-themed episode talking about, I guess it's your favorite games in the series?
Yes.
With a breakdown as to why, including the plot, as well as the game mechanics and what he would love to see. But if you haven't seen it yet, please go by Cybernetic Pink Eye's channel and check out the latest video. I will say some cameos are in there at the very beginning of me, Red as a Tomato,
Skeleton 08,
and Cyberlink
420.
We said that exactly the same way.
Yeah, that tracks.
How did you manage to get that 3D shading thing? In Clip Studio, actually, they have 3D models. So, like, I mean, I'm not going to actually do anything with this at this point, but let's pull up a fucking model. You can drop it onto the screen, and then you have a 3D model that you can move. That's not what I wanted to do. Manipulate, manipulate how you like. You can pose things the way that you want to, so I'm literally just moving some shit around. Just showing like the little axes that you can turn them onto. You also can, they have some standard poses that you can use. You can also go to their asset store and download additional poses, including poses that have been designed by other people. So, like, let's see. Let's just fucking. So, for example, if you need to show a surprise or drop an extra person on the screen. That's not what I meant to do, but that's fine.
Yeah.
But you can drop the pose directly onto the model and they will shift their position. You can change the angle that they're at. It's really fucking helpful. And if you need to actually figure out the proper shading that you need it at, you can actually change the light source and drag it to be at a different angle so that you can actually get the shading that you need for a particular scene.
Yeah.
So,
Phoenix in the chat. Red is a tomato. I love that Pinkie Pie sounding person. I mean,
I think the only person that sounds more Pinkie Pie to me happens to be Chi-Chi.
yeah, they are both very pinky.
If you have Clip Studio Paint, like, it's literally the asset store. I call it a store, and they do have things that some of which you do actually have to physically pay for. You have to pay for. But they also have a fuck ton of absolutely free shit that you can download, that users upload, and it comes everything from models, like you can change actual, like you can adjust like body shape, body type, stuff like that. They've got different poses that you can use. There's all sorts of really cool assets in there, like including unique brushes. But yeah, so I have taken to using the 3D model posing. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. There we go. To improve the quality of my art, to get, admittedly, a little bit closer to the, a little bit better at the anatomy even when I'm not using, like, a direct reference. Or when I'm not using a model for something like that, but it's kind of like working with the training wheels so that someday I can go off of them. But
yeah,
also, don't let anyone ever tell you that using a reference is a bad thing.
Yeah.
I am simultaneously developing the skills that I might need if I don't want to do this at some point, or if I just want to doodle for funsies. But I'm also in the process getting a better idea of how anatomy works, and I'm getting a better quality image as a result of that.
Yeah.
So, makes it a lot easier to do a lot of the things that I like to do with the arts. Chi-Chi sounds closer to Twilight Sparkle to me, though Chi-Chi also has a range of voices that she can do, but she's
definitely.
Literally played Pinkie Pie.
Yeah. And probably will be doing so more frequently these days, considering apparently there's a trailer that came out for a 3D My Little Pony thing.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, mood. Speaking of Chi-Chi and speaking of Pokemon, and I know I keep pushing this, I'm sorry, but if any of y'all like D&D podcasts, if any of y'all like Pokemon, I not too terribly long ago discovered this podcast called PKMN Legacy, which is a tabletop podcast run by Kvox, and Chi-Chi is one of the players in this campaign, along with Dry Guy and Ariana Nicole. And it's basically this original Pokemon setting where they're playing out, going through the typical, like, earn the badges, combat the evil team, but it's done in a really unique way. So go ahead and look that up and follow them. consider supporting them on Patreon. It's a quality podcast.
Mm-hmm. And yes, I agree, Ragnar. I will say that even if you do have poses to work from, even if you do have, like, if you're using a base of some kind to build your art off of, like, for example, this character design does not come with the model. I'm doing the actual design of the character.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm taking the time to genuinely make something work with my style, just, slightly better anatomy.
Yeah.
I'm also really glad that I was able to track down her body type, because I did the initial sketch, one that you're seeing on the right, just kind of like to get down the basic idea of the character, but whereas Trudy Price is basically tall, leggy, buxom type.
Yeah.
Diane is a little bit more short and stout. Not like particularly thick or anything, but she's definitely not like the supermodel proportions that Trudy and also Ophelia have inherited.
She's healthily proportioned.
How could they say no to a Pokemon Cat podcast?
Yeah. And would you be alright with me linking that in the chat?
Please go ahead.
Alright.
You may end up actually seeing the link before we mention it, but...
Oh, yeah. So let me go ahead. So you can find it at this YouTube channel.
Don't do accents.
What are you thinking, voice actor doing accents?
Well, there's a voice actor doing accents, and then there's a voice actor doing accents well.
Oh, yeah.
Or doing recognizable accents.
Oh, yeah.
I found it already! Thanks, Phoenix. But...
Yeah, and I also specify I linked the channel rather than the playlist on there because the playlist is currently missing a couple of the newer episodes, but those are still on the channel, and you can watch it on YouTube. You can listen to them on iTunes and other things, and again, they do have like Patreon and stuff you can go to. I actually have all the links to that shit in the description of my newest video, which I can also link here if people are curious to watch that at a later point. Yeah, I don't think I've gone this aggressive with the self-promotion and friend promotion in a while.
I mean, you should do a lot more self-promotion.
That's fair. But yeah, thank you again for helping out with providing the voice of Juniper for the video.
It was one line.
Yeah, I mean, but you pretty much captured exactly what I wanted out of that particular portrayal.
I mean, that's why you cast me.
Yeah.
Alright, let's see.
Speaking of Pokemon and speaking of people in my videos, Skeleton08 has also recently started streaming a Pokemon Shield version. In fact, I think he might be doing that now. So, yeah, if after this stream you guys want to go over and head to his channel, please go ahead and support him. He's been starting streaming more frequently as of late, so yeah. Justin is a good.
Oh, absolutely. A very, very sweet person. I actually asked him recently how comfortable he is potentially singing, because we've heard him rapping. Funnily enough,
yeah.
I brought it up and he's like, I've had no training with it. I kind of only do it, on my own. I don't really do it, I was like, oh, okay. I was asking because I may have need for people who can sing to play certain parts in the future at some point. And I know that you can rap, and you can rap really, really well. So I wanted to see if singing was part of that package. And his response to that was, oh, have you been watching my streams? And I'm like, no. But I did see the Homestuck rapping that you did, and he goes, oh, God, I forgot that was even there.
I mean, Because another fun fact about Justin, much like us, he's a filthy homestuck. And he actually did an impressive Dave Strider rap.
Oh yeah, and no, okay. Impressive Dave Strider rap, yes, but also really impressive Solix rap.
That's true. In fact, that might even be more impressive, all things considered.
Yeah, because he was doing a fucking
lisp
and still nailing it.
Yeah. Speaking of rap, you nailed the fuck out of that Friday Night Funkin' rap.
I thank you. I've talked about it before, and I'm really proud of the work that I did do on that.
Yeah.
I had a very short turnaround time on that, at least compared with what I'm used to. But if you've seen the video on Rec D's channel, the Friday Night Funkin' Mommy Must Murder, that is me. And I learned that in the span of about a week.
Yeah.
Learned and recorded and submitted takes in the span of a week. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And if you do dip your toe into Homestuck, I will say I know that this is not usually a good advertisement for something, but it starts off kind of slow. You might even try doing the Let's Read Homestuck that's on YouTube by Voxus, I think it is.
And I'll even say, as far as that one goes, like it starts off a little rough voice acting wise, but it steadily gets better.
Hello, Wolf Time. And yeah, I can rap.
Yeah.
I mean, if y'all wanna say, I can pull up the link to this, but, watch at your leisure.
I have talented friends.
Well, you are also a talented friend, so.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, I can kind of rap.
Yeah.
I've practiced with a few different things. I know, I've been practicing with War by Zach Callison. You know, the voice of Steven from Steven Universe.
Another talented motherfucker.
Absolutely. That's a hard one, but I'm kind of slowly getting my brain around it. It's just getting used to the words in that particular order. But previously, I had actually been practicing with some of the songs from Hamilton.
Yeah.
Which has rapping. You're the first YouTuber to notice my comment? Well, I mean, I do read the chat. Like, literally, that's kind of the point of my doing this today is, it's just in general, is to talk with people who decide to actually show up and watch my stuff, so.
Oh, yeah.
If I become a big, huge, fancy YouTuber at some point with, like, millions of subscribers, I can't guarantee that I'll be able to notice every single comment, but, like, that's a big if, and that's assuming something that is never going to happen, so. But you can hear some of that. I think it's the 3-minute and 8-second mark in the Mommy Must Murder where I get the fastest in there.
Yeah.
But the Satisfied rap from Hamilton. Actually, there are a couple of moments of that, but like in particular, there's the really fast 6 words per second. No. 5 words per second. 6 words per second is the Guns and Ships with Lafayette. But I'm hoping to eventually cover Satisfied on my channel, as well as the cut song, Congratulations. I love that. It's so fucking snarky and justifiably pissed off. But just, congratulations. You have invented a new kind of stupid, a damage you can never undo kind of stupid, and open all the cages in the zoo kind of stupid. Truly, you didn't think this through? Kind of stupid. Let's review. Sorry, I have to remember the lyrics. Let's review. You took a rumor a few, maybe 2 people knew, and refuted it by sharing an affair of which no one has accused you. I begged you to take a break, you refused to. So scared of what your enemies will do to you. You're the only enemy you ever seem to lose to. You know why Jefferson can do what he wants? He doesn't dignify schoolyard taunts with a response, so yeah, congratulations.
See, the closest I can get to rapping is doing select George Carlin quotes. I'm a modern man, a man for the millennium. digital and smoke-free. A diversified, multicultural, postmodern deconstructionist, politically, anatomically, and ecologically incorrect. And that's the extent to which I can remember that particular quote.
The Hamilton, the satisfied fucking rap.
Oh yeah.
I've got more practice with that. I have a weird mix of like I love singing. I think that I can do reasonably well with it, but then I've also got I only learned the word recently, but decantophobia, where doing it live, I struggle with. It's hard to actually perform when people are actively listening to me. But let me see if I can give this a shot. You guys get a nice little live performance, but if I fuck up, it's because, well, anxiety. Love that sarcastic clap with that congratulations.
Yeah, a la Evangelion.
But let me get a quick sip here, because it's a lot easier to do vocal stuff when you're hydrated. Remember, kiddos, hydrate. It's actually surprisingly more important than you might think.
Stay hydrated, fuckers.
Hello, Ashley.
Hello, Ashley.
Lol, hello. At some point I was trying to learn Satisfied and I was practicing so much, but then I stopped and tried again after a long break, and the song murdered me personally. Yeah, it will come after you and your children. So after a brief encounter with Hamilton, Angelica kind of goes off on this really rapid fire, and I really love how it works out music-wise, because it does capture that energy of like, oh god, I'm falling for this person like really, really, really fast.
Oh yes.
So, alright, give me a sec.
Take your time.
So this is what it feels like to match wits with someone at your level. What the hell is the catch? It's the feeling of freedom, of seeing the light. He's been fucking with a key and a kite. You see it, right? The conversation lasted 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. Everything we said in total agreement. It's a dream and it's a bit of a jam. It's a dream and a bit of a dance. A bit of a posture, it's a bit of a stance. He's a bit of a flirt, but I'm gonna give it a chance. I asked about his family. Did you see his answer? His hands started fidgeting. He looked askance. He's penniless, he's flying by the seat of his... I'm trying to remember the lyrics live, Jesus Christ. He's penniless, he's flying by the seat of his pants. Handsome, boy does he know it. Peach fuzz and he can't even grow it. I want to take him far away from this place, then I turn and see my sister's face, and she is... This is fire. Thank you.
Yeah, it is in fact. I mean, again, for someone who's, couldn't remember all the lyrics, you did a damn good job.
I tried. I usually do it with the lyrics right in front of me, but... I need to do more of that, and I do need to cover that song.
Absolutely, you do.
But and it helps that she is perfectly within my range. Like she and Eliza both. The two characters, Angelica and Eliza, are both mezzo-sopranos. I am a mezzo-soprano. But yeah, I need to do more rapping. I need to get better at it because I wanna. And also because I want to cover songs from Hamilton. Yeah. I am looking forward to, big announcement on the stream and all of that, but I am planning on doing a cover of Farmer Refuted, and it's going to feature Griffin as well as our friend Alex. Some of it is a matter of scheduling and availability and all of that stuff, but I am looking forward to that because Alex is going to be taking Samuel Seabury. Their response to it is basically, I'm going to do a really, exaggerated English accent for this because Alex is actually English. But I've been having fun with that. Now, that's not a fast rap, but it's a fun one.
Oh, yeah.
I really love how Lin-Manuel Miranda played with things like assonance within the two different parts that are talking over each other.
Yeah.
Like the consonant assonance and all of that stuff. Like, really good job. I mean, the entire thing. If you have not seen Hamilton the musical, do.
Yeah. Fair enough.
What do I fucking want to do for her fucking shoes? The thing is that I'm actually going to be taking a mutual friend of Griffin and I, Gail Rice, through a watching of Hamilton. I think that's actually going to be this coming Tuesday.
Yeah.
Because apparently, I when I posted my video for he threw away his shot, and I posted that, shared that, and Gabe saw that and was like, "Oh, is that what Hamilton's about?" And I was like, "Well, it's one aspect of the story, yes." But like, and I mentioned offhand about it. Like, there's some creative liberties, taken with the musical versus the real life events. And Gabe's response was, "Wait, he's a real person?" Okay, but again, in his defense, he's Mexican. He's not.
As in lives in Mexico.
Yeah, actually lives in Mexico, and generally speaking, you're not going to be. I mean, most Americans don't know what the fuck is going on with Hamilton, or at least didn't before this musical came out.
God.
Do shoes for the shoes. I mean, yeah. I'm gonna do shoes for the shoes.
Yeah.
That's the plan. I'm just trying to make sure that I make them look good, though.
Yeah.
Because there's more than just shoes. There's a lot of different designs and design elements that go into the construction of a shoe.
Yeah.
I think that'll do. Yeah, I think that's gonna work. So that translates on this side, like so. The buttons are going to be the other side of it. Yeah, I think that works. I didn't know who Hamilton was before. Yeah, that's just it. Like, most Americans knew about Hamilton was that for some reason he was the presidential figure. Well, not the presidential figure, but the forefather of America, founding father of America, that was on the $10 bill.
Yeah.
But beyond that, a lot of people didn't know who the fuck he was, etc. And I will say the musical is not going to be 100% accurate. A lot of it is creative liberties that are taken with actual real life events.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still good. It's entertaining. Just, at some point, remember the difference between, fiction and reality here.
Yeah.
But, just do shoes. Thank you, Wolf Time. I would have figured out shoes at some point. But yeah, the musical's really, really good. It's worth watching, regardless of accuracy. The music is fantastic. The performances are fucking amazing. And it really is innovative in terms of what it ended up actually introducing to musical theater. A lot of people didn't know that rap could work for a musical, and Lin-Manuel Miranda proved him wrong. And there was the innovative sense, in the sense that it was literally explicitly cast with people of color, as opposed to, it's literally how it was designed, was to be cast with people of color. And that means that the only people who are white in the entire thing are largely just the English people.
Mm-hmm.
There's only a couple of roles that are explicitly for white people. And one of them is King George, which I'm sure a good majority of you have heard the song that he sings.
Oh, yes.
The You'll Be Back. Most public schools in the U.S. really emphasize Washington and Thomas Jefferson. Yeah, you think Hamilton is crazy, the Burr Conspiracy is crazier. I don't know if it's historically accurate or not, but that would be a great sequel. I have no idea what that is, but there's a lot of shit that's going on with Hamilton between reality of it as well as the fiction being told. Like, for example, in the musical, Angelica Schuyler was supposedly in love with Hamilton, and it's not something that can be easily confirmed. They were flirty with each other, and a lot of their letters back and forth were very, wink wink, nudge nudge, but as far as anyone could tell, there was nothing actually between them, especially because Angelica ended up eloping with someone that she was actually very much in love with. But there was one point. So in the musical, it gets swapped out where Hamilton ends up writing something with a weird placement for a comma. And it's made, explicit in one of the songs. It's like, my dearest Angelica, but he puts a comma after dearest, making it my dearest Angelica. Which, he's like, what did you mean by this? It turns out that in real life, the person who put the weird comma was actually Angelica, and Hamilton lost his shit over it, apparently.
Huh.
Like, he was like, okay, what does this mean? What did you mean by this? Did you mean more than this? What's going on? So it's like, there's a chance he harbored feelings for her.
Yeah.
There's a chance that she harbored feelings for him, but it's, again, not something that was ever a confirmed thing.
Yeah.
I just wrote about King George's song in chat. Yes. I saw that. Oh, wow, you guys must be a few seconds behind me. At least a little bit. But yes, you'll be back. It's a fun song, and it stands out because a lot of the music as it was composed was actually structured around like the 80s and 90s revolution of rap music as it evolved into a lot of what we see today. And obviously rap is still evolving, but like as opposed to where rap music was like prior to that point, it ended up picking up a lot of speed and I say speed, but I'm picking up a lot of momentum as well as obviously public approval. But there's a mixture of like standard musical Broadway stuff as well as the fusing that with rap and a few different styles that work really well. But the King George songs are literally a reference to the Beatles, set in the 1960s, or from the 1960s, deliberately giving this antiquated, outdated sound. And it's much more fitting, and that's a much more traditional musical song. And I love it. And I love, like, you listen to it. If you only hear, like, the album version of it and, hear the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, you imagine that this person is probably, like, bouncing around. Like, it sounds so... But you actually watch the performance, and he's standing there stock still, staring at random people in the audience with this stare that's just like, oh, God, there's something wrong. Imagine doing a typo but a letter and you can't even block your crush out of embarrassment. You have to live with it. Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, I think there's definitely a delay at this point. At least it's not like an hour delay.
Oh, yes.
What if I do? There's a typo on papers, cross out the letter I made a mistake on instead of crossing out the entire word. I mean, I will say... It's hard to say. I could imagine that there were probably rules about just crossing shit out. I think you generally had to start over on a new piece of parchment, basically.
Yeah.
It did not look good if your final thing had something crossed out. And this was the days before whiteout.
I mean, I think the rule of thumb back then was just, shit sucks.
I will also say that there was a lot of emphasis on slower writing, as opposed to today where we're trying to keep up with we're trying to keep up with the speed of society. But back then they had a lot more time to sit and contemplate as they were doing their writing. So I think, yeah. Yep, that's a Diane.
Hell yeah. She looks good.
Thank you. But yeah, I will say the quote-unquote typo is still, like, it's subjective, but that's what makes it hilarious. Is the, what did you mean by that? No. What did you mean by that?
Nani.
Why did you, are you interested in me? Just asking for a friend. She looks so nice. I'm actually really happy with this.
Hell yeah.
Because in the story that I want to do, so I've told this story before, but in the first attempt at Magic of the Mundane, the Ophelia Price that I created was a very shy, mousy type girl. Not the sort to ever call attention to herself, never forward, never the sort to take charge in any sense. And I had some frustrations while playing her because, like, I wanted her to go and investigate things, but if I were to roleplay her accurately, she wouldn't do that. And so when that campaign ended, and we eventually tried again with the current ongoing campaign, I was like, okay, I need to remedy this because my playstyle is absolutely with someone who interrogates other people, with someone who, is bold and skeptical, and absolutely the sort of person with confidence who just goes out there into the world and makes things happen. But I've sort of ended up kind of toying with the idea of the two of them actually being cousins. That somewhere out there, the first Ophelia is still out in the world, but just it's not the same. It's not exactly the same Ophelia. She wasn't remade completely from the ground up. But in the story that I want to do, which would be a totally actually original story, like actually legitimately, I'm working on not divorcing it from the source of the characters, but like making sure that I'm not just taking Gab's idea and effectively just writing fan fiction. I'm taking the character concepts and moving them to my own platform. But so part of the what it would be, the premise, I guess, the conceit of the story is that the first Ophelia Price ends up moving back into town where the second and / current Ophelia Price lives. And because the two of them end up immediately coming into conflict with the comes to the names, Ophelia 2 tells the first Ophelia, or what was effectively the first Ophelia I created anyway, alright, the name Ophelia is mine. You're going to have to figure out another thing to call you, because you're not going to be called Ophelia. I'm Ophelia. And, she settles on being called Leah. So that's how we distinguish between the two. There's Ophelia and Leah.
Yeah.
Hi there, stopping by for a quick sec. The art looks good. Thank you, Nicholas. And also bye, Phoenix. I'm sorry I missed you. Did you call me my dearest as friends? Well, I'm sorry that you got a card that didn't spell your name correctly. Personally, I'm happy if I get a card. It's always a nice thought. Even if it's not spelled correctly, even if it's not entirely perfect, unless they're literally sending a card to say fuck you, I'm gonna be like, oh, they took the time to actually do that.
Yeah. I mean, as someone whose name is Griffin, I've had to deal with a lot of people either misspelling or just missaying my name over the course of my life. So,
Graf?
Griffith was usually the most common one.
I'm not gonna actually tell that story on stream, but I remember there being a series of people within when I transferred to another school, they misspelled my last name the first time, but I was like, oh, well, that's not a big deal. Surely it's not going to be, important. Surely they'll fix it on future documentation. Yeah. But they ended up continuing to misspell it so badly that by the time that it got to having to officially introduce myself in like a orientation type situation, they got a completely different last name, and I was like, when they called it, I was like, well, that kind of sounds like my last name, but it's not really. And I was like, maybe they're talking about a different version of my name. And then no one answered, and I was kind of like, well, I'm this name, but correct to my name, and they're like, oh, okay. It's like, so you really, in fact, just got my name wrong repeatedly.
Yeah.
And you're the ones who are trying to educate me. Alright, take care, Wolf Time.
Yeah, take care, man.
But yeah, it's always encouraging. I mean, to some degree or another, a lot of students encounter the experience at some point where they realize that maybe they're actually smarter than their teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not going to say I'm the smartest person in the world. There is a lot of shit that I am very dumb about. I can't do math for the life of me. I can do a little bit of math. And I have to do a lot of tricks in order to actually make it work. But, like, I can do math. Basic math, but I'm not good at it. Not by a long shot. And because of dyscalculia, if I have to focus on numbers for too long, or even, like, technical language, or, like, anything from, like chemistry or physics equations, formulae, etc., my brain just kind of goes, whoops, I didn't get that. So that's been a lot of fun in my life. So, but I will say, I have always prided myself on being verbally intelligent.
Yeah.
And words have always been my life ever since I was a child. Like, I had a huge vocabulary. I was reading a lot of high-level stuff, at least at the time, by the time I was actually entering kindergarten. As a person with an Iberian Peninsula last name, I feel your pain, because no one except Spanish teachers would butcher my last name. Yeah, I mean, my name isn't exactly all that complicated. I'll say this much, it's 5 letters, and it's not like, it's I hate to say it this way, but it's basically what the problem is. The reason why this is kind of like, okay, but what though? It's a very white last name. Like, it's literally very English.
Yeah.
But like that whole zone. And I have found that in America, they have an easier time being able to read surnames that are white coded. And they tend to struggle with names that are anything other than, white coded. So I was all the more surprised. I mean, again, I was also like fucking 16 at the time. Jesus. So I was even more, I grew up in a very sheltered place, so my thought at the time was very much like, okay, but why though? I live with the pain of hearing my last name constantly being misspelled every time, both from the people I know and from complete strangers. Yeah, sorry. But yeah, that was why it threw me off. It was just like, it's 5 letters, guys. Anyway,
Yeah.
I have, to some degree or another, like, I have largely respected my teachers over the years, but I've always found it funny whenever I was actually more verbally intelligent than the person who was teaching me about something. It was usually not in an English class, because you're not often going to get an English teacher who is not verbally intelligent. That's obviously, there's always going to be exceptions to that, but, especially because I took a lot of AP classes. So, that being what it is. In fact, let me fucking tell you, I'm gonna fucking brag. I'm gonna fucking flex on y'all motherfuckers. When I was in high school, in my AP courses, I was not only so good at what I did in terms of, like, essay writing and analysis and all of that shit, that the teacher literally recruited me to help with advising other students.
Huh.
In terms of correcting, like, the basic grammar shit, explaining, here's how you can structure this sentence in a way that makes it a lot more easy to understand, etc., and so forth. But yeah, I wasn't necessarily a teacher's pet. I was just, this is my area of expertise. I can say the things good. But I know I'm not necessarily the smartest, just that this is the one area that I can confidently say, okay, I'm smart about this. I also have a last name often misspelled because it sounds like another last name that's usually spelled another way, and it sort of gets on my nerves, especially when I sign a text or mail with my full name and they get right back to me by calling me the wrong name, but like, it's right there. Yeah.
Like the funny thing is, like, you would think that with my last name being what it is, it'd be the most easy fucking thing to remember, and yet.
Well, some people don't have basic reading skills.
I know, right?
They just can't read basic.
Yeah.
Anyway. Alright, come on, line. Go where I want you to. There we go. You connected like a good little line.
Yes.
Anyway. There's... oh, okay. There is... God, brain empty, apparently. Let's see, where was the train of thought? There's a lot of different kinds of intelligences, and
Oh, yes.
words make no sense. Honestly, English is a fucking shithole of a language.
Yeah?
Welcome back, Wolf Time.
Yes.
But where was my train of thought?
Basically, names are weird.
Well, not even that. Like, so here's a funny thing, by the way, guys, with ADHD is like, y'all might be watching this, and y'all might be watching this sometime down the line, and I'll be in the middle of a sentence and then forget what I was saying. That's a function of ADHD, unfortunately. Or I guess technically lack of function. But it can be just as simple as in the middle of the sentence, the memory just goes away of whatever it was that you were just fucking talking about. It literally just slips out of your brain because ADHD makes it really, really difficult to retain certain information.
The brain be kind of fucked that way.
Which is another reason why your ADHD friends might sometimes interrupt you or like tend to try and get everything out in one sentence or in one speaking turn, because if they don't get it out of their head then they might never actually remember what they were going to say. And that is frustrating. Believe me, as frustrating as it is to be interrupted by someone doing that, imagine how frustrating it is to have to do that because your brain does not do the thingy that it needs to do. That it was literally designed to do. So when people forget shit, it's not because we don't care. It's literally because our brain does not retain it. And so if you think that I'm stupid because I don't remember a thing that I was literally just talking about, I do try to keep on top of that and compensate for what I can't do organically. I understand that, Laura. Wait, there's an ADHD thing. I mean, I can't diagnose it, but it is a very common, I guess, symptom when it comes to ADHD. There's trouble with memory. There's, like, if you get interrupted in the middle of thinking about something, you will sometimes forget the thought. You can think, it's similar to the thinking something in the room, leaving the room, and then forgetting what it was that you were going to be doing.
Yeah.
That's ADHD brain all the time. And it leads to things like, if you know, like forgetting someone's birthday, and then, like, if you cared, then you would remember this. And it's like, I care, but I can't remember it. Like, I have to overcompensate in order to remember it. And it's not because I do not care about specific dates. It's not because I don't care about this information. It's not because I don't care about the instructions that you've tried to actually pass on to me multiple times now. Believe me, I care. I care a great deal, which is why it is so distressing when that information leaves my head. But there's that. There is a lot of people who have ADHD are prone to depression because our brains are literally not getting enough stimulation. And there's a couple of things that can lead into that. Literally, because of the lack of stimulation, the brain actually starts shutting it down in different ways. And also, one of the ways that your brain can feel things, regardless of whether it's good or healthy or not, is depression. Because it finds stimulus in going over negative patterns of thought because you feel something. It's literally, I do this to feel, except that's how the brain will often do things. So depression is literally your brain being so obsessed with any kind of stimulation that it goes to something that is bad for you because it's the only way to get that stimulation. With online meetings, I like having a chat function because I can write down my thoughts without holding. Yeah, I do the same sort of thing. I start putting the birthdays in the net because I can't ever. Another common thing with ADHD is actually rejection sensitive dysphoria, and like I've mostly heard it connected with ADHD. It's also common with other folks who are not neurotypical. A lot of people who are on the autistic spectrum will experience it to some extent or another. Well, some people do, but it's not uncommon. And while everyone experiences some degree of like hurt when they feel rejected by someone or when they feel like an outsider to a situation, the specific thing with rejection sensitive dysphoria is that you have a disproportionate response to thinking that you've been rejected by something or feeling like out of place within a social group. And that's frustrating because it's like you can logically go, I shouldn't be that hurt by this. This is an overreaction, but it doesn't stop you from hurting. Like it's in this particular case, it's almost impossible to not hurt as a result of the brain interpreting something as you not being part of the group or someone having turned you down or rejected you for some degree. Because it's like the second that if say you embarrass yourself with something, it's like, oh no, now I'll never fit in with this group. I have to leave this server. I can never speak with these people again because they don't care about me, and also I'm stupid and dumb, and there's no chance of ever redeeming anything ever. It's obviously not how that works. But in the moment, the feeling overrides what's actually logical to experience. The hurt is real. The reason for it is not as intense as the emotional reaction. As a matter of fact, that's literally because there's a dysfunction. Now, you know this more than I do, but basically the part of the brain that regulates emotion, is that the amygdala?
The amygdala?
I think.
Believe that is the... Wow, this really shows how fucking tired I am. Me being the fucking neuroscientist.
I was gonna say, whatever part of the brain that is literally responsible for emotional regulation.
I believe that is the case. For whatever reason, I was getting the amygdala mixed up with the hippocampus in my head, and then I was like, "Wait, man, that 3.5 hours is showing."
Right, but the part of the brain that actually regulates emotional response does not temper the emotional response to the actual stimulation that you're experiencing. So you have a disproportionate amount of hurt to something that wasn't actually that bad, but it feels like you have now been shut off from someone. Your brain will interpret rejection as physical pain. Yep, it's terrible too. So I feel so bad when there's actually nothing going on, just silence after. Yeah, even things like I send someone a message and they don't respond for like the next hour, and I'm like, oh, I must have embarrassed myself. And like I've had to do a lot of I guess mental conditioning, so to speak, to sort of, the hurt's not going to stop no matter how much I actually work on my mental health. But I've had to actually try and work out ways to disrupt the inevitable spiral from those feelings as they come up, because I can't actually stop my brain from sending me those signals. There's a lot that I can do, but unfortunately when you are not neurotypical, there's only so much that you can do because your brain's not wired for it. literally, it becomes miswired effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that you can really do ultimately is figure out how to temper your reaction. And sometimes that means things like saying, I'm sorry, I need to step away for a moment because I'm far more hurt by this than I should be. And I need a second to process this, or even just like, hang on, I need to cool off for a second. I don't think that I'm going to have a productive conversation right now. Some people won't let that happen, at which point you do have to make the choice to disengage. Like, you can't continue forcing yourself to be in that situation because you will do and say things that might hurt someone else. I say that with a lot of certainty because it's when your brain starts telling you they don't care about you, you sort of get into this mind space of, then I'm going to reject this person before they can reject me. That's not a fair response. That's why the interrupting of that, okay, so you feel hurt by this now. Your feeling comes from the part of your brain that doesn't regulate your emotions that well. If you still feel hurt by this an hour or two from now, if you still feel hurt by this tomorrow, then you might see about bringing this up with the other person. But communication is a really good, useful tool to figuring out whether or not your perceived interpretation of an encounter is actually the experience on the other side. Most often, as soon as you say, hey, so this kind of rubbed me the wrong way, or I was concerned that I came across this way, you'll usually hear from the other person telling you, like, oh, wow, no, that's not what happened. And, like, they'll usually explain, I had to go, help bring in the groceries, or I was not able to focus on it because XYZ. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Now, some people will not handle it very well, but people who care about you, people who are friends with you, they'll be willing for communication. Everyone has their limits, obviously, but generally speaking, asking the question and finding out for sure one way or another goes a long way for being able to mitigate the hurt that can happen in the moment.
Yeah.
Can I pay Griffin to surgically remove emotions from my brain? No, don't do that.
So, yeah, they're sort of important for the purpose of self-preservation.
And actually, if you remove any part of the brain, you're still going to experience emotions.
Yeah, because that's the thing about emotions. They're sort of loosely defined, but essentially what emotions serve as are pretty much a set of instinctual responses that we have associated with specific feelings, which in turn we associate with specific aspects of our lives. When something makes you sad, that is your brain letting you know this is an unpleasant experience, and because it is an emotionally tied thing, it is sort of reasoned by a lot of evolutionary biologists that human beings specifically adapted to become social creatures, as a means of ensuring the survival of large groups of people. Peer selection is actually a very popular thing that's discussed among evolutionary biologists when it comes to the social aspects of well, again, I'm rambling on. I'm sorry.
Okay. It's all right. Welcome back, Zach. And it's okay if it takes you some time. It's okay to step away. Some people will not be great at letting you step away, but if you are able to at some point pull them aside and say, hey, I have this thing, my brain doesn't do the brain thing great. I may need a little bit of extra patience because of this. I want to resolve things with you, but I have some struggles with this because the way my brain is. If you set it up that they know in advance why you're stepping away, that it's not necessarily condemnation of them, but it's just, I don't want you to be subject to an emotional response that's not fair to you. It's not fair to me either, but emotions are good. Emotions are actually a very good thing to experience. But it's... Anyway, I was talking about ADHD. This is unfortunately a very powerful component that I didn't realize was a thing until just a few years ago. I had never heard the term rejection sensitive dysphoria before. And then when I read about it and like actually like understood what it was, I was like, oh my fucking god. This explains why I have such strong emotional reactions to shit. This is why I tend to get really bitter with people, why I've had issues with social stuff in the past, and, you know, like, I now understand why I feel completely out of control of my emotions when shit happens, because I'm literally not in control of the emotion.
Yeah?
So it takes some work, but it is possible to mitigate some of it. Just be patient with yourself, be willing to, or you know, let people know around you that you might need a little extra patience. But generally speaking, it is absolutely manageable. It's just, I can't tell you that it won't hurt anymore, because unfortunately the hurt part is the thing that can't quite go away. It can be reduced. But it takes a lot of mental work, and sometimes there's going to be better days and worse days. But it's worth the effort, because the more that you can actually tell yourself, okay, but is this because of what they said, or is this because of what you think they said? And if you give it a little bit of time, is this going to make a little bit more sense for a different perspective? So it takes a lot of work to kind of train that kind of thinking into you, but it helps a lot in the long run. I learned through a comic the whole autism thing. The more you learn of yourself, the more you can grow and help those around you grow with you. Yeah. Hey, Skeeto.
Hello.
Sorry, I was focused on the art while I was talking. Hello, Skeeto. Good to see you.
Yeah. Also fancy that, you focusing on the art during the art stream.
I know it never happens. But I have a vested interest in creating Diane.
Yeah.
I do love her as a character. Like, I'm not gonna talk much about her on stream because some of it's a bit of a spoiler for certain things, but I do love designing characters. I love her design. She's fucking adorable.
Yeah.
She just literally looks like a fucking ant.
Yeah.
But anyway, other things involving ADHD, the lack of focus is literally because the brain isn't getting enough stimulation from the correct hormones. You can't focus on anything because your brain's is not feeling the thing that you're focused on. Literally, the hormone that keeps you focused on something isn't being produced or isn't being received by the parts of your brain that actually absorb the hormones that you need to get certain communication shit going on, basically. To get the right, literally the focus juice.
Yeah.
So being distracted, it's easier to focus when you have multiple things that can stimulate your brain at the same time. That's why a lot of people with ADHD have, like, you know, the fidget cubes and the fidget spinners, and like a lot of people who are in class who have ADHD will tend to draw or drum or, you know, have some kind of fidgety thing that they're doing. They can't stay focused unless they're doing something else at the same time. I know that I actually had an easier time remembering what, like, lectures were saying when I was doodling in the middle of class. Because if I actually had to sit there and listen to someone talk, I couldn't process it as easily. And then, like, the information would just kind of wash over me. But if I was doodling at the time, I was able to retain that information at least a little bit better. It's trying to think of some of the other things with it. A lot of it is, like, you know, the ADHD, the hyperactive part of that, largely refers to the fact that a lot of people with ADHD are often seeking the brain stimulation that they're not getting, which can mean sometimes there's physical hyperactivity, where that's where you get the stereotype of leg bouncing or having to go outside and run for a bit, having to find like ways to break from what you're doing. But there are a lot of different ways that ADHD can actually physically manifest for people. Some of it is a lot more psychological, some of it is a lot more internalized. It's, I guess, in some ways similar to being, I mean, they're both being, you know, not neurotypical, but it's, in some ways, it's similar to being on the spectrum. But yeah, there's a lot of overlap, and there are a lot of people who are on the autism spectrum that are also dealing with different aspects of ADHD. Similar that you can have different traits and different ways that it manifests, that they still fall under the same umbrella.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I was known as the kid who literally is never there. I could never completely I could really completely forget where I was, what's going on. Anyway, I need to see a doctor. Yeah, there are a couple of ways that they can actually diagnose ADHD. The funny thing for me was when, gosh, it was like 2 years ago now. Jesus. But like, yeah, 2 years ago when I first started my therapy, I was like talking with my psychiatrist, and we were going over like a lot of the symptoms that I dealt with on a daily basis. And I had some inklings that I was dealing with ADHD. But like I talked about like previous medications that had worked for my depression in the past, certain things that helped me overall, a lot of the symptoms that I was experiencing. And towards the end of my session with the psychiatrist, I mentioned, so I actually wanted to ask about this and whether or not there's like a test that can be done to determine whether or not someone has ADHD, because I have a lot of symptoms that kind of lead me to thinking I might have that, and I want to see if I do and to rule it out if I don't. And she said, actually, a lot of the things that you brought up today are huge red flags for ADHD, including the sleep phase dysphagia, whatever the term for it is, Jesus. But basically, when you have a delayed sleep phase, you get the brain juice for sleepiness at a completely different time. That's not uncommon with people who have ADHD, which is one of the other reasons why we can be completely unfocused when everyone else is like perfectly fine and awake. Because it's like you get the brain juice at 3 o'clock in the afternoon that makes you go sleepy, and you're like, I have no energy to do anything. What the fuck? That's another sign. But the other thing was the medication that had worked for me as an antidepressant years ago that I unfortunately had to stop because I came off of health insurance, and this is the United States, so great.
Yeah.
She said that was actually very commonly effective for people with ADHD. And I was like, oh. So we talked about a couple of different options, and then she tentatively started me on some Adderall. Now, a lot of people hear Adderall and they think of, like, you know, it's a stimulant. It's a narcotic, as a matter of fact. And it is heavily restricted. But, like, the reason why it works and actually calms people with ADHD down is because stimulants literally end up stimulating the brain enough for us to actually fucking relax. It puts us up at the normal level of brain stimulation to suddenly be able to function. And that's why stimulants have the exact opposite effect for people with ADHD. It makes sense to me because I've always needed caffeine to some extent or another. Like, I didn't just randomly get addicted to it. I literally, like, there's obviously, like, you know, caffeine headaches, but literally I need caffeine because it was a stimulant. It is a stimulant. But anyway, so stimulants work very different for people who are in ADHD. That was too many letters. Anyway.
A few.
I'm screaming, here goes my denial, this is all me. Yes, Add, ADHD, and autism as brain cousins. They really are very related. But, like, so, people who are not supposed to take these narcotics, that are not supposed to be taking amphetamine salts, aka Adderall, like that's the brand name version of it.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to because it is an addictive drug for people who are not ADHD. Well, I suppose people with ADHD can also get addicted to it, but like it would take a lot more.
Yeah.
But like for me, I've never felt particularly wired after take. In fact, I even commented when I was still adjusting to it that after my first couple of doses with it, I literally started getting sleepy after taking those doses. Like, I literally got sleepier after taking a stimulant. And she goes, well, if I had any doubts about this before. So it's an interesting experience. But, like, it's when you understand all of these symptoms and, like, if you can get it actually confirmed. There could be a number of reasons why you experience a lot of these same things, too. Sometimes it's related to trauma. The brain is really complex.
It really is.
There's a lot of overlap between symptoms for a lot of different things. But if you suspect that this might be the case, you might want to bring it up with your doctor or psychiatrist, psychologist, whichever you're actually... psychiatrist would be the easy one if you want to get the actual, like, medication for it.
Yeah, primary or specialty health care individual.
Yeah. But, like, getting it treated can make a huge difference. Like, I will say I still struggle with a lot of it. Griffin can attest that I have my days that I struggle a lot with emotional regulation still. And sometimes it can literally seem like it comes out of nowhere. And it's not just as simple as my emotions are not regulating themselves. I will say that because of my life experiences, unfortunately, there's at least some degree of justification for why I feel the way that I do and why it's particularly intense. So it's not like it comes out of nowhere, but it's harder to regulate those things. That all said, getting actual treatment for it and learning various tools to be able to address the psychological effects of dealing with ADHD, it makes a world of difference. I do have to do a lot of the conscious mental management. I have to be like, okay, you feel like this in the moment, but give yourself time. Step back a little bit. Think about this, and if you need to consult the other person and ask them, hey, so my brain's being dumb. Is this what you meant by this? Or, something along... The communication aspect is very important, too.
Yeah.
Anyway. But yes, one of the other symptoms being literally the subject that got us onto this is not being able to remember things, even in the middle of saying something. Hey, I remembered that. So have patience with me, and if you're watching this afterwards and you watched this all the way straight through and you hear me talking about one thing and then I completely forget what I literally said like just 2 seconds ago, that's probably why. And if you want to be rude about it, I mean, don't be a douchebag. Is chronic inability to start a task? Yes, that's executive dysfunction. That is that's called executive dysfunction. It's a common thing with depression, but executive dysfunction is your brain is not able to prioritize tasks. Either it feels like too big of a task, or it can't figure out the starting point. Now, that sounds... It makes it sound like you're stupid, but it's literally the brain is not equipped to put things in proper task order. So,
yeah.
Whereas normally...
Sorry, go ahead.
So, normally, a task like do the dishes. It's a simple task. It's a one thing. You go in, you wash the dishes, you're done. But to someone with ADHD, it suddenly becomes, which dishes do I wash first? Where do I put the dishes after I've washed them? And with each and every little detail of it, it starts stacking and then becomes overwhelming, and to the point of I can't start this thing because I don't know where to start. Or even just literally, I need to go take a shower. Hours later, still doing something else. I should go take that shower. Or I should get something to eat. Doesn't move.
I mean,
I'm not able to prioritize tasks. If there are 2 things I need to do, I do 0 things. Anyway, I'm so sorry. No, it's Donna. Here's the thing. If anything, if I'm helping you to understand something, if this actually is clicking with you, then I'm happy, because I know that for me it was an absolute, it was very revelatory. Like it was empowering to know that it was for a reason and not just some personality flaw.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm genuinely close to just how much lore reads my brain accurately. Like, okay. Another thing that I'm smart with is brain stuff. Not like actual, like, you know, the neurology aspect of it, but psychology. Psychology, I intuit my way through.
Yeah, and I was even going to elaborate on one point since you brought up the, you know, specifying that executive dysfunction does not refer to any sort of lack of intelligence. When people talk about executive functionality in the brain, that's basically referring to like the ability to cognitively go through different tasks in the brain, you know, like problem solving, things like that. And it's something that varies vastly from person to person, depending on a bunch of different circumstances. Funnily enough, like being bilingual can actually have an effect on that, because it sort of forces the brain to sort of reroute the direction of like, okay, how do I do this? Because the fun fact is that people who are bilingual actually generally have increased executive functionality because their brains are forced to take those different routes. But the odd part is that the trade-off is that with people who are bilingual, they do generally not have very diverse vocabularies, because they constantly have to shift back and forth cognitively between the languages.
That's an interesting fact. And it's, yeah, another interesting example of it. But, yeah, executive dysfunction is the reason why you can acknowledge, I need to do the thing. And then you still don't do the thing. It's like trying to turn the key. I mean, I guess this might be an outdated reference at this point. But say you've got one of those cars that start by turning the key, and then you don't turn... You turn the key and the engine doesn't start. You're trying. On your part, you are absolutely working your damned hardest to get the motor running, but the motor doesn't start. The engine doesn't start. And it's frustrating because, like, you know you need to go, but the vehicle ain't moving. And it's not, I mean, there can be any number of reasons why that happens. Again, the brain is complex, and there are a lot of different ways that can manifest. I don't know all of them. I imagine, like, for example, PTSD or any kind of traumatic experience can end up affecting your ability to prioritize things, because anxiety very often even comes in the form of trying to compensate anything that might ever happen, which is not uncommon for people who have experienced a trauma of some kind, because you don't want to experience that trauma again. So you mentally go over a list of all of the ways that trauma could happen to you again. Sometimes just switching languages for a thing allows me to gain hindsight. Yeah. Or you just hear the ignition clicking, but nothing other than... Yeah, exactly, Robrina. But it's hard because, again, externally, the only thing that people see is you saying, I should get something to eat, and then sitting there staring blankly and not actually doing anything. It looks like laziness, but it's not. It's the brain didn't do the thing it's supposed to do. And one of the things, and this is, this is something that I do, if I find myself in that loop of I should do the thing and then I don't do the thing, I actually just, I have this failsafe of stand up. Not necessarily even do anything, but just in the moment, if you know you have to do something, but you're not you're not going to do the thing, stand up. Because the physical movement ends up sort of dislodging some of the executive dysfunction. It puts you in a mindset of, okay, I've moved. Okay, now I can do the next step. And I do that, I mean, for the most part, whenever I actually encounter I need to do the thing and then I don't do the thing. Standing up, even if the thing that you need to do is something on the computer, stand up because it breaks your brain of getting stuck in that rut. Ragnar, yeah, it's pretty late for you. Please, have a good night, dude.
Take care, my dude. And yeah, I will even elaborate on that. Like, I would like to imagine that one of the, but like, yeah, I think one of the contributing factors, at least because of that, is not only because the brain now has to focus on a different task that has to do with mobility, but also because once you start getting up and moving up, that, stimulates a change in the flow of oxygen going through your brain. And the brain definitely depends on oxygen and the flow of other nutrients. So depending on your amount of like bodily activity, that will have an effect on the flow of oxygen through your body, including to the brain.
Well, and even so, like, thinking about doing something is a different part of the brain than physically getting up and doing it. It activates a different part of your brain. Yeah. And when you literally light up a different part of your brain, it ends up sort of having a nice little dislodging effect. I'm speaking from personal experience. Whether or not this is all actual technical scientific shit, I know at least a little bit to know. The brain lights up in different places when you do different things. Yeah. I just know that it happens to work. I mean, not all the time, but it works more effectively than if I just sit here and keep saying, I need to do the thing. Yeah. But that is, it's not easy being green. It's not easy living with ADHD. And I think that, unfortunately, a lot of people underestimate how much of an impact that it can actually have. Because for a while, I can certainly speak through the 90s, ADHD was written off as things that only kids have, and it's just something that makes you hyperactive, and it makes you, I'm trying to think of the word that's not ableist for it, but basically you're not taken seriously.
Yeah.
But it actually has a very profound effect on your psychology, your ability to do things with the brain that most people kind of take for granted that they can do. Hello, Binyo. It's been a long while since you've actually been around these parts. Cool to see you, man. But, like, it's been so unexplored, even. Because they kind of, like, wrote it off for a while. They're kind of like, well, you can live with this. It doesn't impact your health all that much. It does, by the way.
Oh, yes, it does.
It doesn't affect your psychology. It absolutely does. There's a lot of misconceptions about what it is, and it's not just some minor thing that you can just kind of cope with. I mean, some people can. Oh, yeah, only boys have it. Just like, autism presents differently between different genders in a lot of different ways. Not always. There's always exceptions. But generally speaking, they look for different symptoms. And for a while, that ended up meaning that a lot of girls, or people who were either socialized as girls or just in general, ended up having their symptoms completely overlooked. ADHD is pretty terrible. I had a car accident in October, and though I haven't exactly seen a therapist, I think it's safe to say I have it. And it is clear driving at night with... I feel like there was a disconnect in that sentence somewhere. Is that my brain?
I'm not sure. I mean, again, I'm not in my brain not good right now.
Oh, okay. It's fucking snapped. Okay. I just realized that what you were saying is that the reason for the car crash was because your brain got distracted because the rain itself was a visual stimulation that took your focus off of the driving. Okay. I got that. Sorry. It took me a second. No, it's okay, Ian. I apologize. Hey, look, that's ADHD in action. Not understanding not understanding something for a second, and then after asking the question, the brain, having lagged, then suddenly catches up with you. That's another reason why You can ask someone what they just said. Like, you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you repeat yourself? And then in the middle of them repeating what they just said, you understand it. You hear it in your brain as if hearing it, like, lagged from when they said it. So you'll often, or, well, it's a common thing that people with ADHD will suddenly go, oh, yeah, and, like, they'll actually cut the person off who was repeating themselves for your benefit. White boys, because unfortunately 90% of studies only look at white people. Yeah. Will we see you in more Friday Night Funkin' projects as mom lore? Well, that's the plan.
Yeah.
I will say that right now, because Recti has been pushing himself really hard. Like, it's been a lot of shit piling up on his plate, but yeah, he pushed himself pretty hard, so there's gonna be a little bit of time between last week's upload upload and the next Friday Night Funkin', but there are definitely plans for either things that have not been done or original things that Recti might himself be doing. Please tell me you will. No, he's already. Recti already has that on his channel.
Yeah.
He basically plays almost all of the male parts. And he largely just brings in, like, at least coded female vocal talent for different female characters.
Yeah. Besides, also, after having just finally finished my newest video, I sort of want to just take a few days to just go, okay, maybe don't think about projects for at least a hot minute.
Yeah, that's a mood. It's hard to keep up with the crunch of YouTube, but...
Yeah.
Aw. Well, I mean, Recti does a fine enough job playing Dad.
Yeah.
I will say I remember even recommending Justin for Senpai.
Yeah.
But understandably, yeah.
That's a good fit.
It's a good fit, but he's also said he's not comfortable with the singing, so...
Yeah.
And you would have to learn it really quickly, and it would be really fast. And if you're not, like, particularly trained as a vocalist, some people can do it instinctively, but not everyone can. Yeah, it's understandable. I will say this, and this is just a general kind of announcement, like, in general, but, like, I've seen this very commonly. When you have a content creator and they consistently try to put out quality work, try not to pressure too much about when the next thing is gonna come out. Like, on the side of production, there's a lot of shit you don't see before the video comes out. It's not like a content creator just barfs the video into existence. Especially if there are things like having to write lyrics for something, write scripts for something, if there's a visual component, putting together the visuals for it, the video editing itself, which Griffin can definitely attest to because he puts a lot of effort into his editing and it's evident in the final product.
Thank you.
There's a lot of work that goes into pretty much every quality video that goes up on YouTube. And some people can work at a really ridiculously fast pace, but many people have day jobs, many people have other reasons as to why they may not necessarily be,
I'm sorry. I saw Ian's comment and I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, there's overlap between ADHD and PTSD, but they're not mutually inclusive, so yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, content creators especially a lot of them do put themselves through hell in order to create the shit that they make. I've been, behind the scenes of many a production. I know a lot of what goes into it. I've had a hand in organizing it from time to time. And it's hard. Like, it's not something that pops out. So even for someone who is really talented, someone who's able to work pretty darn fast, it's still not a great idea to be like, but where's this though? Not because it's inherently like a bad question to ask, just it's pressure.
Yeah.
And creating content is already stressful enough in some ways. Someone T-boned me. Oh gosh. Yeah, I was gonna say ADHD is a neurological development thing. It's not something that you get. But I'm sorry to hear that, man. That really fucking sucks.
It really do.
But
Yeah.
anyway, living with ADHD is fun.
Yeah.
And I talk about it because it's like one of those things where I didn't learn about it until literally just a few years ago. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but I am old. There were some things like I didn't learn about, and it's partly because the information was not available, for example, but like I didn't know that I was ace until I was in my early 20s because I had literally never even heard the term before. Kids these days have easier access to information like that than we used to. I think that's a good thing. I think that we should have continued more access to information. We deserve to know that there are words for things that we have experienced our entire life.
Agreed.
Which is one of the reasons why I do freely talk about the stuff that I experience and live with and deal with. Because you never know if it's the first time that someone's actually going to hear about it. And I'm fresh after passing my driver's test, yeah. Excuse me.
That's not helping my case right now.
Yeah, I kind of figured. And all things considered, I think it is actually about that time that I should be hanging up for the night, so to speak.
Yeah.
We have been going for like literally as I looked at the time, it was 2:22 on the dot. 2 hours 22 minutes. Literally on the dot, switched to it that by the second as I looked to how long I was streaming.
Surprising no one.
Hi, Owen. Out of nowhere.
I guess that's my default tired of everything voice.
I guess so. But yeah, so I had fun putting together this art today. You get to see a little bit of the process behind the scenes, a little bit of a look at a character that is probably coming down the line at some point.
Yeah.
No idea if it's going to actually come to anything, but I have fun designing the character anyway. I wish I knew about the ace and arrow orientation spectrum as a teen. It would have saved me a lot of headaches with other people. Yeah, we're going to sound tired. He got 3 hours of sleep, I got 5. But that's not unusual for either of us, really. And it's only our own faults, too. We literally did not have to do that, but we did.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you, Don.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm hoping to be available next Saturday to stream. I'll still figure out what it is. Hopefully I'll be in a better mind space to do more. Like maybe figure out a game that's a little bit more novel, something like that. But we'll see how I feel. This is always a week by week kind of situation, but I do appreciate everyone who decided to come out today and watch. I think this has actually been one of the more active chats that I've had in a while, so I really appreciate that. It's nice hearing from y'all. It's nice seeing you guys in the comments. I have a lot of fun chatting with you guys.
Hell yeah.
But we'll see how things go. I am looking forward to stuff going up on my channel. I've been actually keeping to a pretty consistent upload schedule, which is nice.
Yeah.
But thanks you guys for coming. I know I could do a fucking rehearsed speech. You know, there's like all the standard, you know, like, comment, subscribe, thumbs up on things, ring the bell, etc. Every YouTuber says it because that's how YouTube measures success, but all of those things do help, as well as things like, for me, I obviously have like the coffee.com/mlorelei on the screen. If you want to toss some tips my way for that, or if you want to go to the Patreon, that's just linked in the description, etc., etc. It does go a long way to helping me with just daily life, so I always really appreciate that. But I do hope that, first of all, don't do that unless you actually, you know, like, as long as it's not putting you out for something.
Yeah.
That's my disclaimer, that's my caveat for all of it anyway. But even just you guys being here to chat and talk about stuff and keep me company while I do arty stuff means a lot to me. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to let you go. Thank you, Griffin, for coming by to co-host, despite the fact that you have been exhausted today.
Yes, but it was fun.
You sound like it was fun.
I mean, it was.
I'm glad. And hopefully I will see you guys next week.
Take care, everyone.
Don't do that. Don't you do that. All right. Have a good night, guys.
Bye.